So this talk is about Hemingway's Iceberg Theory. And so this comes from Ernest Hemingway, famous American author, famous Nobel Prize winning author. And this is also, you may have heard of this also being called the theory of omission. But Iceberg Theory is a little bit easier to remember. And again, this comes from Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway's iceberg theory uses the metaphor of an iceberg. So if you can imagine that this is an iceberg and this is your water level, the Hemingway says that 10% of the story should be above the surface, just like 10% of an iceberg is above the surface, and 90% of an iceberg is below the surface. So when we read a story, we should only get about 10% of it. The part that's on the surface is what we read. The part that's below the surface should be what we can read into the text. So let me give you an example. There's a famous story about Hemingway, and we don't know if it's true or not, but for our purposes, we'll say it is, that he bet a guy in a bar that he could write a story in 6 words. He bet the man, I believe it was $50. And so the man took that bet, and this was the story, 6 words. So there's our whole story. For sale, baby shoes never worn. And if we look at this story, what is above the surface? This is above the surface here. For sale, baby shoes never worn. Now, what's below the surface, right? We can see that possibly there's loss or even death of a baby. Maybe that's why they were never worn. We could see that there's some sort of poverty or some sort of financial impact here, why we're selling the shoes. Even if we did lose the baby, we must need the money if we're selling the shoes. And then regardless that there's some kind of grief there as well. So this is the 90% that he's saying, whereas above the surface, we only get 6 words, but we get a much deeper story if we stop and think about it. So I might think about this and think about Hemingway's theory and what it means to other pieces of writing as well. What's being said on the surface, but also what's below the surface. What are the characters feeling? What are they thinking? What's really the story going on? And essentially, that's in a nutshell what Hemingway's Iceberg Theory is about.